Well, hello everybody, how are you doing this fine day? I hope you're enjoying your weekend. I've been having a hell of a couple of days myself because I was being raw dogged by Florence. This bitch did not ask me for consent at all. Just bent me over that table all disrespectful like and had his way with me like a cheap $5 whore, and I'm not happy about it. Knocked my power out for 3 whole days. Just came back on this morning, so that is why I have decided to come here and grant upon thee a video. Sorry I've been gone. Nature's a bitch. Now I do thank all the people who were commenting on the videos and sending me messages and all that kind of stuff, asking if I was okay and everything was alright, giving me their prayers and wishes and all that. It was very kind of you. I thank you, because you guys, you just don't know how awful it is. The news just doesn't cover it. They don't tell you the true horrors of what it is to survive a natural disaster. For some reason, my people just don't get the true horrors of their stories told. You want to know what it's like when a hurricane comes through your town and just ravages it like a fucking step sibling? So the first thing that happens is your dogs start freaking out because they don't fucking like nature for some reason. They won't leave your side. They start barking at nothing. They freak the fuck out. Next thing that happens is that your fucking power goes out. So now you're in total fucking darkness and you have to walk around with flashlights and shit. And you have absolutely no AC. And since we're in the deep south, that means that it's easily 95 degrees bare minimum in your household. And because your dogs start freaking out, I have 3 by the way, they need to go to the bathroom more. You try to take them out to the bathroom outside with 70-mile-an-hour winds, they don't want to go because it's a hurricane out there. That shit's, it's not, like, it's a bad thing. So what they end up doing is they start shitting in your house, like all over the place, constantly, because they're nervous about the storm. Then that shit starts to melt because it's over 95 degrees in your house. So you have horrible liquid shit everywhere throughout your house. So basically, you're not even thinking about trying to survive the storm because you're running all over your house cleaning up dog shit in this hot box with stale air that can't go anywhere, and you don't want to be stuck with that smell for the next 3 days, and you're just crouching down in pitch blackness with a flashlight cleaning up hot, sloppy dog shit for basically the entire night. Then after the storm finally passes and the next morning you can finally function kind of normally, you still have the whole we don't have power for a couple of days. So now you're just cleaning up shit outside your house from the storm, getting rid of all the trees that fell over, because obviously if you got a tree, that shit's gone now, and just trying your best to get rid of the dog shit smell that was caused the night before. It's horrible. It's horrible. I almost feel like I shouldn't share this shit with you because I mean, kids watch this. This is just inappropriate. Some things are too horrifying to show into the mind of a child. They need to stay, innocent and good. Anyway, point is, that's why I haven't made a video in a couple of days. But my power came on this morning, and I could finally make a video. And this is the one I decided to make. We're going to go over all the characters that have appeared in my Cult of the Lamb survival challenges, and we're going to put them in a tier list. And I got the tiers right here in front of me. I got 6 tiers. And for some reason, this fucking bottom tier right here is bothering me. Because for some reason, I can't get it to match the other tiers. Like, they're all in the middle. And I don't have OCD, but this is, it won't, I can't fix it. It just won't. It's annoying. So I wanted to actually stream this, but I still haven't been able to figure out how to get that to work. Because I am technologically retarded. So that's still up there if anyone wants to jump into the Discord and help me learn how to stream things. Because I would actually like to do this while streaming to other people and have them responding and reacting to what I'm doing. But I don't do technology. So that's why that hasn't occurred yet. So for now, as much as I don't like it, we're going to do it this normal kind of bullshit boring way until I figure out how the streaming shit works. And if/when I do figure that out, we can redo it with other people, or we can just wait until the next one, because I can do another one of these sort of tier list videos with, the Arkham City survival challenges, or the Oz survival challenges, or any of that shit. It doesn't have to just be this one. I just gotta build up enough videos in that particular survival challenge so that I have enough characters to actually make a decent sized video. This one happens to be the one that I have the most characters for, so it's the one I did. But like I said, once I get streaming done, I'll try to do it with basically all the survival challenges. Hopefully via streaming. But anyway, I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So let's go over these tiers and basically explain what they all mean. They should be pretty self-explanatory, but just in case, here we go. So first up, we have instant obliteration. The characters that are going to go here are the characters that can't survive at all. They're characters that are going to be killed by the basic cultists on the island. They're not going to be able to face any bosses. I mean, we're talking about less than a day of survival here. They're not getting far at all. Next up, we have indoctrination. These are characters that could probably kill a couple of cultists here and there. Again, pretty self-explanatory. All of the cults are capable of indoctrinating people. If a character seems like they can survive long enough to not get instantly obliterated, but will become indoctrinated to the cult for whatever reason. This could be a personality weakness or a physical weakness, or maybe they're just super useful in some way the cults would want to indoctrinate them. They're going to go in the indoctrination section. Next up, we have long run. These are characters that are actually going to put up a serious fight and survive for quite some time. They may survive for weeks or months or even years, but it is inevitable eventually they will be killed at some point. This could be slightly stronger characters that are maybe immune to the indoctrination and will not be indoctrinated, but still a big enough threat that they need to be dealt with. There could be all sorts of reasons why someone has a long run but does not become indoctrinated, and that's what this category is for. Next, we have resident. This is a character that becomes a permanent resident on the island and is never capable of being defeated for whatever reason, and basically lives a long and happy life. Well, maybe not happy, but they're capable of surviving on the island. They are essentially survivalists. They become characters like Midas or Sozo or one of these other characters that are permanent residents who live on the island and don't really have too much fear of death anymore, and they kind of have gotten comfortable there. But they're not strong enough to actually face off against the bishops or the lamb or anything like that, because they would be killed off if they do. So it's not quite that. However, up here we do have that. We have Challenger of the Gods. These are characters that go up and are capable of fighting against the gods, or who will go off to fight against the gods and not be immediately killed. They are a threat to the bishops or the lamb. They don't have to be capable of defeating them, and they can even die to them, but they become strong enough to become a threat to them. That is the Challenger of the Gods. And Godslayer are the characters who are capable of actually killing the gods and putting them down. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they can wipe out and just like kill everyone. Like, if you can kill the bishops, but you can't kill the lamb, you will still go in the Godslayer section. Like, you just have to be of an equivalent power to the gods and a big enough threat to overthrow some of them. And those will be the 6 tiers in a nutshell. So first up, we have Ajna from Indivisible. So we're actually starting off with kind of a strange one, because Ajna is sort of 2 different characters. There's Ajna, who is like this young teenage girl who goes off to save the world, but she's just a piece of a greater godlike being, and then by the end of the game she refuses with that godlike being, and then they go up and they become this new being, and they like become a star in the sky and shit, and they have all sorts of power. They get to like destroy and create universes and all that kind of shit. We're not using that version because that's not Ajna anymore. It's like a totally different character by that point. Ajna basically ceases to exist when she combines with her whole self and becomes this new godlike being. We are putting Ajna on the island. She's very, very powerful. She's capable of easily smashing through rock and concrete and all kinds of stuff. She could punch and shake mountains. She's a very, very powerful character. She's going to be able to fight through pretty much all of the cultists with ease. It's not even going to be that much of an issue with her. That's not necessarily her most powerful ability, though. Her most powerful ability is she has this sort of alternate universe inside of her mind, and she could trap people in there, and once they're in there, they're harmless. They're not capable of attacking anyone else who's trapped in her mind or attacking her in any way. They're just sort of trapped. And then she can summon them to fight for her, kind of like a fucked up mental Pokemon, whenever it is she wants to. And she's capable of trapping friends as well as enemies in there and pulling them out to fight at any time she wants. This is by far her most useful ability, and really the only reason why she stands a chance. Because despite her actually being really powerful, she has no other powers or defense against hacks, like at all. Not any. She can't resist mind control, soul manipulation, being banished into a hell dimension, being forcefully turned into something. Like, she can't resist anything. She has no resistance powers. So she's going to have to very, very heavily rely on this trapping people in her little mindscape ability. And this is going to work on 99.9% of the characters that she comes into contact with in this universe. So if she was just happy with surviving on the island and fighting against the cultists and trapping the ones that are too strong for her to deal with, which there will be very few of those to even begin with, she'd be fine. She would actually belong somewhere in the resident category. However, the story of Indivisible is about her not wanting to go out of her way to save the world and realizing that she kind of has to, and it is her duty and responsibility to go out and protect people and save the day and become a hero. And since she goes through this character arc, it basically means she's kind of fucked here. Like, she's going to go after the bishops, the lamb, and the goats because they are sadistic beings who torture, murder, maim, sacrifice, and cause all kinds of fucked up shit to happen to the people of this island. Ajna, as her character exists, will not be able to just stand by and do nothing. She's going to have to go after them. And when she does, she's not going to be able to trap them in the mind space because all of these gods have shown being able to travel to other universes and back without any issues. There's really no evidence that once they're trapped in her mindscape, which is like this other plane of existence, that they can't just open up a portal and just escape instantly. And while trapping people in the mindscape is a pretty cool power and, you know, it's impressive and stuff, they have just as many cool powers that are more likely to work on Ajna. Like I said, the indoctrination ability will work on her, that she has no resistance to any form of mind control throughout her entire game, ripping her soul out of her body, banishing her to a hell dimension. She just doesn't have any abilities against any of this stuff. So she's gonna go up and she's gonna fight the gods. She's going to be obligated to based on her characterization, and she's gonna lose. And she's gonna lose very easily. She's not gonna stand a chance against any one of them, which means she's not getting a challenger of gods since she's not really a threat to them. She's gonna go. Oh, nope, not right there. She's going to go up in long run. She's going to be a long run. Like I said, she's going to go through all the cultists actually pretty easily with very few, only like the top tier dudes really standing a chance against her in terms of physicals go. And then the bosses might stand even more of a chance against her, but she can lock them in the mindscape. But once she gets to the gods, she's fucked. So it's a long run, but she will eventually fall. Next up, we have the Beheaded from Dead Cells. And there needs to be a bit of a correction here because people seem to think that the Beheaded and the King have the same personality and that the Beheaded is the King and is just hiding the fact that he is the King the whole game. And at the end, it's a reveal to you that he's actually the King and he's kind of this bastard. That's not what happens. Like, that's not the story. The story is that the Beheaded doesn't actually know who he is, and by the end of the game, when he takes control of his body, he gets his memories back, and he essentially becomes a whole new character. For this challenge, I wasn't using the King, because the Beheaded's powers are based on the mutations of the body that he's in. At the end of the game, the cells leave the body he was in that had all of the powers that you have throughout the game, and jumps into the King's, who is a new body who we don't have any feats for. He kills exactly one character as the King, and has a completely different personality than he did as the Beheaded. So I'm not using the King. People saying that I didn't play through the game, I didn't beat the game or whatever because I didn't mention that the King was in there. I did. I didn't specifically state the King was in there, but I did say some shit happens at the end that I wasn't going to talk about. And if you played through the games, you should know exactly what I was talking about was the whole King situation. So, no, this isn't the King, this is the Beheaded. He has a different personality. And honestly, even if I did use the King, he would not do very well because the King is a conqueror who wants to subjugate and control those around him. He would probably also go after the gods because he's not going to tolerate being ruled by them. He would come face to face with them either way. So like people saying that me saying that the Beheaded would go after the gods is wrong because he's the King and the King wouldn't feel the need to go after the gods. Yes, he would. He would need to go after for a different reason, but he would absolutely go after the gods. As for the Beheaded, throughout the game, he slowly learns little by little of the damage the King has done to the world, and he shows straight up disgust for the things that the King has done to his followers and the people of the world of Dead Cells. By the end of the game, he actually does want to go up against the evil people who have caused all these problems. When you actually find out once he possesses the King's body and becomes the King and like is the King, that's a tragedy because you see the good person that the Beheaded was or that he became over the course of the game suddenly dissipate, and now he's this evil King bastard and the person you've been playing with the whole time is no longer exists essentially. Now having said that, how far is he going to get? Well, the Beheaded is just like a pile of cells that take over different corpses and basically use them to fight his way through. He can't really die, at least not in his own game. You could slice up the body, you could fuck it up, you could burn it, you could, eviscerate it. It really doesn't matter. The little pile of cells will just jump out of the body, go to a new body, take it over, that whole thing. This makes the Beheaded essentially immortal in terms of his own game. Having said that, he's not immortal in Cult of the Lamb, because there's a lot of powers that exist in Cult of the Lamb that do not exist in Dead Cells, like soul manipulation, like banishing you into another dimension, like indoctrination, that can actually take out the Beheaded permanently. Now, what I should say is the Beheaded is actually a very powerful character. In Dead Cells, he jumps into like a bullshit who gives a fuck corpse, but he can then add different mutations to that corpse to make the corpse stronger and stronger and stronger and have all different kinds of powers and get a bunch of different cool weapons and magical abilities, all this. It's cool stuff. And he becomes really, really powerful. Once that body dies, he loses it and he has to jump into another body. So the issue he's going to have here is when he gets to the island in Cult of the Lamb, he's going to do very, very well. But he's only really going to have one life, because once he dies and that body is no longer usable, the cells is going to jump into a new corpse, and he's going to lose all the mutations he brought from his own world. Once he gets into that new body, there's no mutations in the Lands of the Old Faith. That's not a thing that exists. So when he jumps to that new body, whatever strength that new body is, he's stuck there. He doesn't have the ability to increase in power to overcome the challenges like he does in his own game. So he essentially has to do whatever he's going to do in the Lands of the Old Faith in one life. And the question then becomes, is he going to be able to do that? No, because even at his absolute strongest, he's still not stronger than most of the boss monsters in the world. And even in the Beheaded's own game, he's usually not killed by just one dude. The whole idea of the game is that you jump into a corpse, you run through the story, and you get hit little by little, and as you fight, the body gets more and more fucked up until it just can't function anymore, and that body can't go any farther. He essentially doesn't have any form of regeneration or healing, or at least his healing is very, very limited. So with the Beheaded fighting and trying to survive for a very, very long amount of time, even against characters that are considerably weaker than he is, every little hit that is dealt to his person is going to be a serious problem, as he doesn't really have any way of healing that. So even if he doesn't come across any bosses or bishops or the lamb or the goat or anyone like that, he can still die and lose that body with all those powers against the regular bullshit cultists. They're not going to be able to put him down permanently because he could just jump into a new body, but once he does, like I said, he's then going to be the same strength as every other cultist. What I think you're going to see is a whole lot of frustration coming from the Beheaded as he just jumps into a new body every couple of days, as the old body just keeps getting killed by characters that are just as strong or even stronger than he is now, since he will not be capable of killing a stronger being at that point and jumping into a better body. So this could be that he'll be a resident, since he might not even make it to any of the higher tiers. However, if he does make it to the higher tiers, they're going to wipe him out instantly. Also, much like characters like Ajna, he doesn't have any sort of resistance to indoctrination, so he could really go into resident, long run, or indoctrination. It really depends on whether or not he runs into the bosses of the universe. There's a good chance he won't pursue the lamb and goat directly, so he could be a resident, but it's going to be a very low tier resident. Like, he's never really going to be able to be anything more than just something that people kill constantly, and he'll just keep coming back. So we're going to do resident for now, but just know that if he ever actually comes across anyone stronger, he's instantly done for. Yeah. So next up we have Moonlighter. This is probably going to be the first one that's going to be taken out pretty easily. He's not particularly strong, Moonlighter. He's a shop owner that has this sort of dream of becoming an adventurer, so he ends up becoming a shop owner and adventurer, and he just goes into caves and fights and collects items that he can sell in his shop just for basically the fuck of it, because he just finds it fun to go out and adventure. However, in his own game, he's shown to be very risky and to constantly go deeper and deeper and deeper in these dungeons, fighting stronger and stronger and stronger beings for the love of adventure. The problem is that Moonlighter's not very powerful. Even at his absolute strongest, there are basic bitch cultists on the island who are stronger than he is. I mean, they're the stronger cultists, but they're like high tier to mid tier cultists, but they're still just cultists. Like, a high tier cultist in Cult of the Lamb is actually stronger than most bosses in Moonlighter. And his adventuring nature is going to mean that he's going to want to keep pushing the limits and going deeper and deeper into the Lands of the Old Faith, and he just straight up doesn't stand a chance. So, I'm going to say he might last a couple days. And then he might be, even at his absolute strongest. So this might be instant obliteration. Either instant obliteration or indoctrination. But honestly, I don't think he's going to make it to the bishops. This is going to be instant obliteration. Yeah, Moonlighter's fucked. Alright, next up we have Shovel Knight. And I got to get this out of the way immediately. I don't care that there's a DLC where he beats Kratos. I don't give a damn. That's everybody's argument. He beat Kratos. Kratos does not have any feats in this game where he fights Shovel Knight that shows that he's as strong as he is when he was in his own games. It is a crossover DLC. What happens in crossovers is that characters' strength levels are altered so that they can become a match for one another. This constantly happens in crossovers. It's just the way things work, and it's the norm of these kinds of stories and things like that. In the entirety of the Shovel Knight franchise, Shovel Knight is never shown doing anything more than small building levels of power. I'm not suddenly scaling him to Kratos from the God of War games just because they had a crossover. Even in that crossover, he doesn't do anything better than small building, so he's still at small building. You're not using a crossover DLC as a loophole to make him literally billions, if not trillions of times stronger than he actually is. So no. And in terms of his strength, he's actually kind of just a little bit stronger than Moonlighter, but he definitely has a lot more abilities that are a lot more helpful. All Moonlighter has is weapons that he can swing and some items like he can throw and they explode, and then he has like a teleport that he can go back to his shop, but he doesn't have any magic or any abilities or any hacks at all. Shovel Knight actually has a lot, and he's arguably more skilled as well. So he's not instant obliteration, that's for sure. His survivability goes up because he does have things like being able to stop time real quick for a couple of seconds. Items that increase his survival chance. Like, he has some stuff right there. So it's definitely not instant obliteration. But he's still outmatched by a lot of higher tier cultists. And I don't think he's going to make it as far as a boss or a bishop or a lamb or the goat. He's going to run into problems way before he ever reaches them. However, he's also a very heroic character. So he's going to be compelled to go out and stop those problems. This is a difficult one. I'm going to put him at long run. This is hard. Is he going to be over Ajna? Ajna's stronger than he is. But I'm more convinced that she's going to go after the bosses than I am he is. Because while he's a heroic character, the heroics that he does in his own game are still for his own personal benefit. Like he's trying to save someone who's specifically important to him. He does go out of his way to help other people throughout the game, but it's people that he comes into contact with. He doesn't go out of his way to help them. He runs into them and they ask him for help and he accepts. So he'll probably do that. He'll probably help regular citizens that exist in the lands of the Old Faith against the cultists and fight the cultists to help them, and they might come to him and give him little quests and he'll succeed, but there's really no evidence that he'll go after this massive threat that's more powerful than he could possibly hope to be. So yeah, I'm going to put him in the long run. I do think he'll probably eventually die to the higher tier cultists, but I think that he has enough skill and abilities that he could survive for quite some time. Alright, so next up we have the Gunmancer from Wizard with a Gun. And these guys are actually like master survivalists. And like Ajna, they're actually stronger than most of the basic cultists, and they might even be able to fight bosses. They can't fight against the bishops or the lamb or the goat. They don't stand a chance against that, but they can fight against all of the cultists, even the higher tier cultists and the bosses. So they're automatically going over instant obliteration and indoctrination. I also don't think that there's anything that exists within their character that forces them to go after the lamb or the bishops. In their own story, their whole thing is trying to fix the world after the world gets shattered into a million pieces. They're trying to go back in time and basically put it all back together. But a lot of this is because they themselves actually caused the shatter, and they're trying to undo a mistake, and they're trying to like create a home to go back to, essentially, because they're just floating in the middle of space with nothing to do. There isn't anything super heroic about them to where they would go out of their way to try and stop the corruption that exists within the island. So, although not as powerful as Ajna, I think they're probably going to be a resident over Dead Cells, because while they only have one life, they're shown to be really, really good at survival, and they're a lot more powerful than the Beheaded is. So I think they're going to become a permanent resident. Alright, Castle Crashers. I've said this before, I'll say it again. They're the weakest people I've put. They're absolutely getting instantly obliterated. I've heard arguments against this, but the arguments are really, really bad. People have said, oh, their shields can block literally any form of damage. This is not true. There are several instances in the game where their shields cannot block damage. There's rolling boulders. There's that dragon that like rolls the flaming stuff down the hill. You cannot block those. You have to jump over them. They cannot block every type of damage. This is a lie. And even if they could, it wouldn't matter because the power levels that exist in the Castle Crashers universe doesn't come anywhere near the Cult of the Lamb universe. They've never had to block attacks as powerful as the characters in Cult of the Lamb are capable of dishing out. So just because they could block everything in Castle Crashers, which isn't even true, it wouldn't matter here. Secondly, a lot of people have taken like game mechanics to try and argue, saying that in the game you can do infinite juggling. So essentially, if they go up to the lamb, they can just juggle him forever and just kill him, and he won't even be able to fight back. I mean, obviously, it's stupid to try and take game mechanics here, but if that's the case, the lamb has invincibility frames, so you can't juggle him. You hit him one time, you won't be able to hit him a second time. Invincible, he'll kill you instantly, and he's way stronger than the Castle Crashers are. He'll kill him in one hit. Most of the cultists will kill them in one hit. The Castle Crashers are so much weaker than your basic cultists that even with their strength power up where they eat the sandwich and become super buff, they're still only matching the strength of the lowest tier cultists, and that strength buff only lasts for 10 seconds. The Castle Crashers cannot possibly survive on this island. They are getting captured, murdered, sacrificed. It's basically instant. They just do not have the physical ability to fight against anything here. They're absolutely the weakest being on this list. Next up we have Nobody. I really like Nobody. This is a cool one. So he's actually super weak. He's actually probably should be down by Moonlighter and Castle Crashers. However, his power is that he can transform into a bunch of different crazy forms, and these help him survive in a lot of ways. He can also like fuse the forms together. So for instance, he can be a zombie, right? That every time he bites someone, he creates zombies and he can make a massive zombie horde. Or he could turn into a mermaid, right? Who can breathe underwater and swim and shoot like water blasts. If he wants to, he can give his zombie bite ability to his mermaid form. And now he is a mermaid who can swim underwater and create zombies. And he can do this with any one of his forms. He can turn into a fire-breathing dragon that also can summon tigers from his magician form to fight for him, so he could summon like an army of tigers. And he could just blend all of these different abilities together to make really cool combinations. So in terms of just sheer variety of abilities, he's actually pretty impressive. But you really can't get around the fact that he's not that strong, and that he doesn't have resistances to most hacks. So I think things like being able to turn into a rat and sort of like scurrying off into the woods or into like little holes where cultists can't get him, or turning into something like a dragon to like just shoot fire at them all, and even beings who are more powerful than him, he could fly away by turning into something else. Like that's all stuff that will help him survive, but he won't thrive here. I think it's very possible he can get captured, indoctrinated, killed, or have some other horrible thing happen to him. I think we're going to put him in the long run, barely, just because of his ability to survive. Oh, come on, bitch. Okay. Just because of his ability to survive. Whoa, what the fuck? Did I just pick up both of these? How did that? No. You get out of there. Go back. My computer's fucking up. This is what happens when you buy a fucking $60 computer from a guy who got it out of a dumpster. I really need to get a much better computer to do the stuff I want to do. Alright, next. Okay, I saw that. You skipped a line. You're going back over here. Come on, Shantae. Whatever. I'm using Shantae next. Jesus Christ. Okay, Shantae. Shantae's pretty powerful. She has a lot of really cool abilities. She can transform in all different kind of forms. She can use elemental magic, stuff like this. She's definitely stronger than somebody like Shovel Knight. And she also has this really bad habit of... She's basically a weaker Ajna, to be honest with you. She has a little bit more resistance to hacks than Ajna, which will allow her to survive a little bit longer, but she's not nearly as powerful as Ajna physically. So she may actually go between Ajna and the Shovel Knight. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I think she's going between Ajna and the Shovel Knight. Problem is, though, she's going to want to fight against the cultists to help the people that live there. And that's going to put her directly into the path of all the cultists. Next up, we got Monster Boy. And he's... Jesus, goddamn, put these characters back to back. He's basically got the same attitude as Ajna and Shantae. He's a hero. He has to save the day. He absolutely must save the day. Just like them, he doesn't have resistance to a lot of hacks. He is physically very powerful, though. He might be stronger than Ajna is. Possibly also more skilled than Ajna. But he doesn't have that mind thing that could trap people. This is hard. Oh, so Monster Boy, his strongest feat is that he is capable of doing this downward pounce move. And at one point in the game, you do it into the center of a volcano. And he travels, I don't know how far, through just solid rock until he bores down into the center of a volcano. It's the strongest feat out of any of the characters that we've put on the list so far. Like the characters who are actually up here. So it actually, he might be over Ajna, but he doesn't have the mind thing. And I think the mind thing is probably going to be more. I think he's actually going to make it to the gods, because I don't think that there's that many cultists, if any, that can actually fight against him. I think he'll even kill the bosses pretty easily. But he's going to lose when he comes to the gods, and he's not going to be a challenge to them at all. So, I'm going to put him above Ajna. Look at this. Look at this. Look how slow this shit is. Come on. Come on. There we go. Fucking computers, man. Ooh, next up we have Skul. Okay, now this one's very interesting. I like this one a lot. So, Skul is from a game called Skul the Hero Slayer, where in his universe, this is one thing I actually don't like about the game, is the idea of playing a bad guy is kind of shit on. Because he's Skul the Hero Slayer, and he works for this, like, Demon King sort of, like, evil character, but the Demon King's actually kind of a cool dude, and all of the heroes in his world are actually super, super evil. So, he's not a hero slayer. Like, the heroes are bad. He's still a good guy. It's just he kind of looks like a bad guy, and all of the good guys in the game kind of look like bad guys, and they're called names that are normally given to bad guys, but they're not bad guys, and all the more heroic-looking characters are actually villains. They basically just swapped the themes around, but you're just a good dude fighting against evil dudes. I wish you were actually an evil person. This would actually make this a lot more interesting. But you're not. Skul is going to get to the island, and he's basically going to immediately think the cultists are the good guys, and all of the bad guys are the good guys, because just visually speaking, they're going to look more what he's used to, and the heroic characters on the island are actually, which there aren't really any, but if there are, they're actually going to look like the bad guys to him. So he might not immediately attack the cultists, except just out of self-defense and solely self-defense. But another thing that's going to give him a leg up is that he actually has resurrection and can keep coming back again and again and again. He also has the ability to replace his skull with someone else's skull, and he gets the powers of the person whose skull he's wearing. He can even improve that skull to be superior to the person who had it before. So he can essentially become a stronger version of anyone he fights against and takes their skull. On top of that, we're giving him all the skulls that he had when he came from his own universe, which I forgot how many he has. A lot. He can have the Skull of Death, he can have the Skull of Zeus, he can have the Skull of Death, he can have the Skull of Thor. There's just a bunch of different skulls with a bunch of different crazy powers. His main weakness here is that he can only have one skull at any given time. And those skulls' powers are pretty limited. Like, he can swap the skull out, but he just has the powers of whatever skull he's wearing. So even if you remove the rule that exists in his game, where he can only have two skulls at a time and swap between those two, even if I decide, like, oh, you can have them all and just swap freely, fine. But he can still only use the powers of one at a time. So that's going to be automatically a pretty big issue for him. On top of that, he doesn't really have any powers that can deal with the strongest things in the universe. He's not physically strong enough to defeat someone like the bosses. He just doesn't have the physical power to do that. And he doesn't have the hacks or hacks resistance to survive against any of the higher-ups. I think he's going to survive a little bit longer than a lot of these characters, mainly because he's going to go in sort of believing that the cultists are the good guys, and when he finally does find out that the cultists are actually the bad guy and dies, he'll have resurrection. Basically, he's going to have a lot more time. It's not like he just has one life, and his whole sort of way of looking at the world is going to sort of buy him some time. However, when he does figure it out, he's going to want to stop the corruption, because that's what he did in his own world, and if he does that, that's going to put him up against all of the strongest beings. I think he's going to get indoctrinated. Normally, I would put him at long run. And here's the thing. Actually, you know what? I actually think there's a good chance that a couple of these characters get indoctrinated. I think Ajna will probably get indoctrinated too after a long run. I might get rid of the indoctrinated section here and just have it be long run. And long run will basically be whether you're indoctrinated or killed, you know? Like it's one and the same. I might just make long run. Yeah. Because you can have a long run and then be indoctrinated or killed, but still have a long run. So yeah, I think I'm going to delete this one. I think I'm going to delete indoctrinated. Can I do that? Is that something you can do on here? I can. Delete row. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I think it's just going to be long run. It's going to be long run, residence, instantly obliteration. Okay, I think Skul's going to have a long run. I think he's going to eventually get indoctrinated. That's what I think is going to happen. I actually think he's going to get there. He's probably going to join the cults. So I think he has a better chance of joining the cults than these people do. So I'm going to put him up front. Long run, but he's going to eventually get indoctrinated. And I think he's going to survive longer than any of them because of his ability to come back to life and not just like go directly for the fucking higher ups in the cult. Basically, any hero that's going to want to stop the corruption and fight through all the way to the Lamb and do all that stuff, but isn't strong enough to actually do that, is probably going to go somewhere in the long run because their life is basically on a timer. Alright, next up we have the Terrarian. So, this is one that I will actually make a bit of a correction on. So, I initially said that the Terrarian would have no reason to bother the Lamb or anyone like that because the majority of the game is underground and he doesn't really have... They basically don't have any reason to come fuck with him underground and he doesn't have any reason to go up and fuck with them. But many people have told me that the Terrarian really goes out of his way to fuck with people all the time in his own game. Like, if he hears that you have stuff that you could drop that could help him, like cool shit, he's essentially like an artifact collector almost. He will go after for the sole purpose of wiping you out and taking your shit. So, yes, while he will be spending most of his time underground, it's just a matter of time that he'll actually try to go after the Lamb and all that kind of stuff, just for their stuff, if nothing else. So, he's not going to be a permanent underground resident like I originally thought he was going to be. So the question becomes, how well is he going to do against the god level beings? He's a pretty powerful character, actually. He has a lot of abilities that would actually be able to fight against the gods. So he might be the first challenger of gods that we have. But I don't think he's a god slayer because he doesn't have a way of permanently putting any of them down. I think he has a chance of going and killing a couple of the bishops. And then once he kills the bishops, he won't like kill them. Like the bishops can keep coming back to life. It's not until the Lamb actually becomes the god of death that he's capable of permanently putting down the bishops. Before that point, he puts them down and then their soul just sort of refabricates their body and just kind of haunts their territory and starts causing all kinds of crazy like passive corruption to the land. Like killing them doesn't actually kill them. And I think that's what the Terrarian's going to do. The Terrarian's going to kill them, possibly. It's not going to be the easiest fight, but he can kill them. And then, like, they'll just come back and corrupt the land, like they did when the fucking Lamb tried to kill them. And it's not actually even guaranteed that he can kill them. It'll be a close fight. He's not winning against the Lamb. He's not winning against the goat. He might win against some of the bishops. But even then, a lot of the bishops can like, really fuck him up with a lot of their hacksy abilities. He's too good to be put in the long run, and he's too aggressive to be put in residence. So he's got to go up in Challenger of Gods. He's gonna die. I don't think he's gonna like win or take over or anything like that. But the fact that he can actually do a pretty decent job fighting against the gods means I think it's going to be alright. Next up we have Zagreus, and this is one that I always anger people about because Zagreus is not that strong. People keep trying to compare him to actual Greek gods and mythology, and they completely ignore that he doesn't do any of that shit in Hades. Like, the actual game Hades, none of the gods have anything that's that impressive. Now, okay, maybe Hades 2 shows new stuff. I haven't played Hades 2. Like, this list was made before Hades 2 even came out. But in Hades, the most impressive stuff that happens in the game are, for one, not shown. They're only talked about. But even the ones that are talked about are like, Demeter causes a blizzard across the entire planet. That's an area of effect ability. That's not a physical power ability. So, like Storm from Marvel, this is a example that I always like to use. She can make a storm around the entire planet, but any asshole can just walk up and stab her in the face and kill her. Like, she does not have the physical powers of all of the energy that it would require to create that storm, and there's no evidence that the gods in this do. As far as physical ability goes, the strongest thing we ever see are characters being able to punch through rock and pillars and stone. Basically, that's it. And if that's the case, physically, they're only about as powerful as some of the low-tier cultists, because all of the cultists can do that. I'm going to give him higher than a low-tier cultist because he's vastly more skilled. I mean, he's better than Achilles, who's the greatest fighter in all of Greece, and he's also has a lot of powers that can help him. He has the power to charm people. He has a lot of stuff like that. Oh, also, I should probably point this out. I'm ignoring the fact that if he leaves Hades, he instantly dies. If that was the case, he would automatically go in instant obliteration. I know that he dies instantly out of Hades. Yeah, I don't need 90 comments telling me that. I am aware, but that's lame, so I got rid of it. We're just going to pretend that's not the case. And he's gonna go... Is he the type of person to like really go out of his way to stop all the corruption? Because if not, he's pretty good. He could become a resident with all of his powers. No, because then you still have bosses and higher tier cultists that are still stronger than him. He actually might just die after a while, but still die. Yeah, and his abilities to survive aren't even as good as Shovel Knight's. So I'm going to put him below Shovel Knight. You see how slow this shit is? Look at that. That's fucking crazy. Okay. Below Shovel Knight. He's going to go right there. I know people are going to be super mad about that because they try to compare him to mythology, but I mean, he doesn't compare to mythology. Hades is not shown to be a universal or multiversal god, so beating him is not that much. It's not that good in the game Hades. He doesn't have the feats for it. Next up, we got Wilson. I like Wilson. Okay, I think Wilson's going to do really well. So, also slight correction. In my video, I said that if Wilson dies, he'll come back as a spirit, and he can kind of like walk around as a soul and bring himself back to life. The only reason why he's capable of doing that in the game, which I forgot about, is because he's in the constant, and that's just an effect of the constant. Normally speaking, he doesn't actually have that ability. So if he's in the lands of the old faith, he will not have the ability to come back from the dead. So how is he going to be able to do? He's significantly weaker than all the cultists. The strongest bosses in all of Don't Starve aren't comparable to the stronger cultists in Cult of the Lamb. It's just not that powerful of a universe. He does have a lot of hacks and a lot of equipment that gives him cool powers that'll help, but his just overall strength levels are way too weak to survive. However, he's really smart. He's really good at surviving just in general. He can make a fire and, he cuts things down to craft shit. That's all going to make him do a lot better. He doesn't have an issue with hiding and staying out of trouble. He's not necessarily a fighter, but he is a very good survivor. And I think he's going to be indoctrinated as well. I think he's going to be indoctrinated because he's super useful. I don't think he's going to be killed by the cultists. I think he's going to be able to survive, but I do think he's going to be indoctrinated. In fact, he might actually willingly be indoctrinated. So I'm going to put him at resident. I'm going to put him at residence under wizard with a gun, right in between here. You wanna go in there, man? You're gonna take forever to load, aren't you? There we go. Yeah, right there. Right there. And actually, since I changed the whole system here, Skul is gonna also get indoctrinated. So he's gonna probably go above Wilson. Jesus Christ. I need a better computer. Look at this. Look how fucking awful this shit is. Can you go where I need you to go? There we go. No, too much. There we go. Jesus Christ. Okay. Still hasn't set yet, is it? Is it set? Whatever. Okay. Next up, we have Akamoto. Oh, I love me some Akamoto. Alright, so Akamoto is the greatest general who ever lived. He becomes the ruler of the afterlife by competing with all other Japanese generals at the time and defeating them all in war. So he's a brilliant strategist. He also has the power to eat the skulls of his enemies and increase his strength level based on how many skulls he eats. There doesn't seem to be any limit to this, as he does it throughout the entire story of the game. And the stronger the skull of his opponent, the stronger increase he gets. This means that his ability to increase in power is basically limitless. So, in a lot of ways, he's basically a better version of Skul. Now, one thing that should be noted is that when he eats the skull of an enemy, he does not acquire their powers. He gets stronger based on their strength, but he doesn't acquire their ability. There are certain, you can eat the skulls of spirits and all this different sort of creatures that have magical abilities, like the ability to throw fire or possess people or whatever, but he doesn't get those abilities, but he does get stronger. He also has the ability to create shrines, and then he can use those shrines to summon his soldiers from the afterlife to come and help him. And all of his soldiers have the same power he does, where they can eat skulls and get stronger, although not to the same extent. They're limited by how much they can eat, and they also don't get as strong as quickly as him off of those skulls. So basically, he will be eating a ton of skulls on this island, summoning an army of the undead that will also start eating skulls on the island, and building a very, very powerful army that is essentially unmatched by any of the cultists that live there. Like, none of the cultists, if he's around long enough to do so, will be able to kill any of his even lower tier soldiers if they eat enough skulls. They're just going to be a very, very powerful army. The fact that he's a brilliant strategist means that the very unorganized cultists are not going to be able to outthink him to take out his army. And really his only weakness is that he wants more. Like, he's a very ambitious person who wants power, so he's going to try and take on the cults and take on the bishops and the lamb and the goat and like actually fight them all. And while he's going to get really powerful, he may even get physically more powerful than the bishops and the lamb and the goat, he's not going to gain any hacks from eating their skulls. So any of them can out-hacks him. Like, we don't even know if he gains hacks resistances from eating skulls of other people. So is he going to survive? I think he's smart enough and he's good enough at just like organization and strategy that I think he's going to be able to survive for a very, very long time. And he may even get powerful enough that he can go up and attack and fight against the bishops and even overcome them. He just doesn't have the hacks or the hacks resistance. So I'm going to put Challenger of Gods, since he's literally going to build an entire army that is capable of taking out the cults, and he himself will be able to fight against the bishops through physical means. But the fact that he doesn't have the fact that he just doesn't have the hacks means he can't actually overcome them. He's gonna get hacks fucked. He's gonna get indoctrinated. You know, whatever, all of the crazy soul manipulate, whatever they want to do to him, they'll be able to do to him, and he doesn't have a resistance to it. He may be able to use some sort of strategy to get around and at least kill them once or twice before they actually come face to face with him and take him out. Alright, next up we have the Graveyard Keeper. The Graveyard Keeper, in a lot of ways, is like Moonlighter. He's a business owner whose business kind of comes before his whole adventuring and stuff. But, unlike Moonlighter, he has a lot more abilities. Well, he's kind of obsessed with money. That's kind of his whole thing. He's a very greedy character. But his powers are pretty good. Well, for one, he has the ability to learn basically anything he wants to in a very, very short amount of time. He's a very learned character. So I think he'll be able to learn what he needs to survive on the island very, very quickly. He's not that powerful necessarily, but he also has a lot of black magic and is capable of creating an army of undead to complete tasks for him and fight for him and all kinds of stuff. He's also a very selfish character, and he has no reason to actually go after the cults. Like, at all. He will have no interest to. In fact, he may actually decide to trade with them and work with them. So, will he survive? Yeah, I think he's going to. The fact that he can craft and build his own camp, build defenses for that camp that no one can get through, and he has a use that people may actually want to keep him around because of that usefulness. Yeah. Let's actually, in Cult of the Lamb, bones are a really important resource that they use to do all of their crazy, like, fucked up shit that they do, like their black magic. And since he collects dead bodies and cuts them up and like keeps parts of them, and like he could essentially be a shop where you go to buy bones. There's nowhere else you can get that. You have to actually go out and kill people. And with him constantly collecting dead bodies and using the resources from those bodies, which is what he does in his own game, he may actually become a shop for bones that the cults can then use to do their black magic. So yeah, no, he's going to become a resident for sure. And I'm actually put him over the Gunmancer, because the Gunmancer is going to be a survivalist, but he doesn't have a use on the island that people actually won't want to fuck with him. He's just really good at surviving. He's good at surviving as well, but he actually has a use on the island. So we're gonna, yeah, he's gonna be the best survivor so far. So he's gonna be a resident. Top of the list of resident right there. Next up, we have Issac. This is one of the more annoying characters. Everyone and their mother kept telling me Issac was going to win through this way, and he was going to win this way. No, he's not, bro. Like, Issac dies from suffocating in a box. Like, Issac is not that powerful. But with the right combination of powers, he could become this and this and that. Really? Then why does he die? Like, canonically, he's not that powerful. And you give him all of these different abilities and powers. People make all sorts of arguments that you can make him immortal, you can make him unkillable, you can make him all sorts of crazy stuff. But no, there's no combination within the binding of Issac that makes him completely unkillable to everything, that just breaks the game. It makes it significantly easier, but you cannot become straight up unkillable in this game. That's not a thing. Y'all are making that shit up. Physically, he's not that powerful. He's weaker physically than the actual weakest cultists, and no amount of pills brings him above the point where he actually becomes stronger than the people. He does more damage, but it's not like I can't shatter a mountain, and with enough pills I can now shatter a mountain. That never happens. He never goes up in tier. He just constantly does slightly very small levels of damage than he did before. He can resurrect, sure, he can do all this, but there's so many things that he doesn't have resistances for. He's not that strong. He's also terrified as fuck. Honestly, even if he does survive for a decently long time, I think he's going to be indoctrinated. He's just not that as powerful as people say. I think he's because of how many hacks and hacks resistances he has, he's probably going to go above Shovel Knight. Yeah, the fact that he's not a hero that goes out of his way to stop people is going to make him survive a little longer than those who are, but I still don't think he's surviving as long as these other three who are just significantly more. No, you know what? Shantae. He's stronger than Shantae, too. I'll give him, because his hack stuff does go beyond what. Look how slow this is, man. This shit's annoying. Okay. Please load. Please function like you're supposed to. Alright, next up, I had some issues with the fucking shitty computer. So, next up, we have Cuphead and Mugman. So, how are they going to do? They're going to do shockingly well. They're actually really powerful. Let's see. I don't think they're going to feel a need to go after the cults. Like, they fight against a literal mountain, and they take it out. Like, there's not going to be a single cultist that's going to be able to fight against them, which means they're going to survive for a really long time. They're not strong enough to take out the bishops or the lamb or anybody like that, but I don't really think they need a reason to. I think the most likely way you're going to have for Cuphead to be overcome is to basically become a victim of his own greed and make a deal with Midas or someone like that and basically get fucked. Will he actually do that? If Mugman's there, no, he'll talk him out of it. If Mugman isn't there, he might, but that's only if he even comes into contact with Midas. He may never come into contact with him. I think overall he may be uncaring about what the cultists are actually doing to other people. I don't think he's going to take on the bishops directly, because in his own game he only takes on the devil because the devil personally came after him and tried to, take his soul and shit. So he might actually also become a resident. He may also become a resident. I think there's a chance he'll get wiped out in a long run if he goes up against the strongest, like the lamb and the bishops, because he can't beat them. But I'm gonna go with resident. Specifically below the keeper, because he's not as useful as him, but he's way more powerful than pretty much anybody below this list, significantly so. So I think he's good at resident, but he's not powerful enough to challenge the gods, that's for sure. Next up, two more. Oh, these are the two most pain in the ass ones. Okay, so I went over this before. We're gonna go over this again. The knight has a lot of hacks and a lot of hacks resistances, and 99.99999% of hacks and hacks resistances that he has, the lamb also kind of has. Like, they match each other's abilities almost to a T. There's nothing that the knight can do that the lamb can't resist, and there's almost nothing the lamb can do that the knight can resist. But there are some things. Again, things like being transmogged that he doesn't have a way to resist. And don't tell me about the damn urn that turns him into a snail. The urn turns him into one thing and then turns him back from one thing. There is no evidence whatsoever that him being turned into a totally different thing, that urn will be able to turn him back. Like, just because you could turn him from a snail to a human, specifically those two things, does not mean that if you turn him to a fucking deer or turn him into a werewolf or some shit that he can still turn back into a human. The urn isn't shown to be able to work like that. So I don't know why people are making that argument. He doesn't have any resistance to being transmogged. That's not a thing at all. And people are saying, oh, well, he's not flesh. Okay, there's, like, why do you think that the transmog only works on flesh? The transmog ability, the only description for it is that it works on enemies. So if the knight is an enemy, then it should work on them. There's no way to think it wouldn't. Like, y'all are adding weaknesses to an ability that's not shown to have those sort of limitations. It just says to work on enemies. And there are enemies in Cult of the Lamb that are made out of all sorts of stuff. So I don't really see the issue here. Now, the best argument I've heard for the knight actually beating the lamb is that he kills everybody on the island. And then once he kills everybody on the island, there's no one to worship the lamb anymore, and the lamb will die because the lamb needs worshippers in order to exist. This is true. However, there's a couple issues with this. One, it takes the lamb 3 days to die after he has no followers. And two, the lamb can resurrect people from the dead. So it doesn't matter if the knight kills everyone on the island, the lamb can resurrect somebody, and he'll have a follower. Also, the lamb can open portals into other dimensions, and if he wants to, he can literally open up a portal and send all of his followers to another dimension if that is something that he thinks will save them from the knight and protect himself from eventually being killed. You also have the fact, which is something that is an actual story point in the comics for Cult of the Lamb, that nobody can actually find the Cult of the Lamb's cult. Like, it is hidden through magical means, and none of the bishops actually know where it is on the island. They can't find it. Despite it being on the island, no one has ever been able to just accidentally discover it. Like, there's some sort of magical, mystical thing where the only people who can find the camp are people who want to join the cult. Enemies of the Cult of the Lamb, for whatever reason, cannot find it. I don't know if this is because it's locked in some kind of pocket dimension or what, but it's just the way it works, and it's how it's shown in the comic book. So even if that was the case, there's no evidence the knight would even be able to find the cult to do that. So this is going to be a really good fight. The knight will be able to kill the bishops, again, not put them down permanently. Perhaps you can say that he could steal their souls. Oh, that's kind of questionable, to be honest with you, because there are characters that are shown to have soul manipulation resistance in the game. They're not going to be able to put him down permanently, but they're not going to be able to put him down permanently either. So he's actually matching the gods. Like, it's more than just a challenge. Like, he's an actual serious threat to them. So I'm going to put him at God Slayer, because he's going to actually wipe out the bishops. The only person that's going to be a match to him is the lamb and the goat. And I think the lamb and the goat are going to be capable of actually beating him, but it's not going to be an easy fight. So he's going to go up in God Slayer. Okay, last up, we have Frisk. And this was probably the second most controversial one I did, where I said Frisk is kind of a weak bitch. And he is. I don't know what people are talking about when they're saying that the game is not based in a game. Yes, it is. It's not just a universe where they have game-like terminology. That's not true. I mean, it is a game. There is a literal player that they actually literally talk about, a player who controls Frisk like some kind of weird meat puppet. There are multiple instances where people ignore Frisk entirely and just look directly at the player and start talking to the player. The player is given a choice in multiple endings at the end of the game, not Frisk. The save and load feature are not talked about as just terminology. It's actually a legit save and load feature. Timelines in the game are not just called, they're called timelines at some points, but they're also referred to by more knowledgeable characters who know they're in a game. They are referred to as save files. It's a game. They're in a game. We know they're in a game. I don't know why people are avoiding this, trying to like fake this shit. They're absolutely in a game. It's a part of the storyline of the game. The whole themes of the game is that all of these characters are not real. They're in a game, and the game tries to get you to view their lives as important despite the fact that they're not actually real. Like our lives are just as important as someone else's. Like, that's the theme of the game. If you remove the fact that all these characters exist in a game, the themes of the game don't even work anymore. Everyone keeps saying that I don't like the game because I'm putting Frisk at a weaker part because I'm respecting what the actual story was about, but you guys are completely throwing out all the themes of the story to force Frisk into a stronger tier. Y'all are the ones disrespecting the game and treating it as if it's lesser if I actually follow what the lore is. I think the lore is actually really good, so I'm following it for the challenge. Frisk is not that strong. So, doing things like erasing timelines is just erasing a save file. Things like deleting all of existence is not existence, it's just getting rid of the game itself. What Frisk has is essentially data manipulation. And if you take him out of Undertale and you throw him into the Cult of the Lambs, the only powers he's really going to have are possibly the determination ability. Although I have heard arguments that say that he wouldn't even have that. But, I mean, I'll give it to him. It's not really going to do a whole lot because the determination is not something that he can always rely on, as it's based on however he feels personally at the time. And sometimes he doesn't feel determined, so it doesn't work. Like, he's capable of coming back from the dead at the end of the game because he feels enough determination to basically overcome death. But he doesn't feel that way for most of the game. He just feels that way at the very end. So even if we take him at his strongest point and throw him in here, it's not guaranteed that he's always just going to be at maximum determination levels. And if he's not, he's going to get killed by a lot of people. You also have the fact that him at his strongest during, like, the evil playthrough, he's not really at his strongest. I mean, all of the monsters that he fights against don't want to kill him at that point. They're at their weakest when he's fighting them. So yeah, there's just he's not going to do very well. He's not particularly strong. His strength feats are super low, and most of his best abilities, like destroying the timeline, all that kind of stuff, it's not going to work in the real world. I've also heard this argument, I hate this argument, that Cult of the Lamb is a game, they're just not aware of it. No, in the inner logic of the game, it is not a game. It's not that it's a game they're not aware of, okay? Because you're trying to use the inner logic of Undertale and apply it to another game where it doesn't fit. Cult of the Lamb, in the universe of Cult of the Lamb, the Lands of the Old Faith, is a real universe in a real world. They're not a game that's not aware they're a game. Undertale is not. It is a game, they know it's a game, they're aware they're in a game, and they talk about the real world, you being the player. These are not the same thing, and you're not going to suddenly pretend that Cult of the Lamb, in its own internal logic, is actually inside of a game. Okay, again, this is you trying to rewrite the story of Cult of the Lamb to make your bullshit from Undertale work. It doesn't. He's not that strong, still a good game, get over it. So where is he going to go? Long run, probably, because I don't think he's going to get instantly obliterated. He's not that weak to get instantly obliterated. But he's really weak in the long run. I don't even think he's going to survive as long as nobody. Because at least nobody can, like, get away and fly away and, like, kind of survive. Frisk is really just a child with a couple of basic powers that's not really going to help him too much. So he goes right there. Yeah, alright. That's the list. People are not going to be happy with this list. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed me making this list, and if you disagree, tell me why you disagree. If you agree, tell me why you agree. And if anyone can help me get the streaming up, we could do this together, and we can actually have a conversation about it, so it's not just me talking. Because honestly, I kind of think that this video is going to be a little boring. I would like to do this with other people, but, you know, it is what it is. Couldn't figure it out. Help me figure it out, and we'll stream this shit at some point. But for now, that's going to be all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And if you join the membership, I'll move Frisk. I'll move Frisk up to, I'll make another tier that's like the Lamb Anal Rapage, and I'll put Frisk up there if you join the membership. How about that? That's what just for you guys. I'll do that shit. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?